How did Louis-Philippe attempt to modernize France? If you're curious about how Louis-Philippe, the citizen king of France, worked to modernize the country during his reign, you're in the right place. Let's take a closer look at his efforts and the impact they had. When Louis-Philippe came to power in 1830, he faced a France that was in need of significant changes. To address this, he adopted a more down-to-earth approach, presenting himself as a king who was connected to the people. He avoided the grandeur of traditional royalty, often walking the streets of Paris in plain clothing and seeking to appear approachable. One of the key ways Louis-Philippe attempted to modernize France was through economic development. He supported industrialization, which led to the construction of railways, canals, and road networks. These infrastructure projects connected major cities, facilitated commerce, and boosted trade. For instance, the expansion of railways helped in integrating regional economies and enhancing communication across the country. Louis-Philippe also focused on urbanization, which was a direct result of industrial growth. Cities like Paris underwent significant modernization efforts, with improvements in infrastructure and living conditions. This period saw the emergence of France as an industrial power, aligning with the interests of the middle class who benefited from increased opportunities in commerce and industry. In addition to economic reforms, Louis-Philippe introduced several liberal reforms through the Charter of 1830. This charter limited the king's powers, emphasizing parliamentary governance instead. It also expanded civil liberties, guaranteeing freedom of religion, press, and assembly. Electoral reforms were introduced, though they were limited, as voting rights were still tied to property ownership. Diplomatically, Louis-Philippe aimed to maintain peace and enhance France's international standing. He fostered strong diplomatic relations with Great Britain, which helped stabilize Europe during a period of potential conflict. This cooperation was crucial for mutual interests and contributed to France's growing influence on the global stage. Louis-Philippe also had colonial ambitions, notably the conquest of Algeria in 1830. This move was part of his strategy to expand French influence and counterbalance British power. On the cultural front, Louis-Philippe was passionate about history and decided to convert the Palace of Versailles into a national history museum. This project, announced in 1832, aimed to showcase the glories of France from the reign of Clovis to his own ascension. The museum featured historical paintings and portraits of great figures, transforming Versailles into a grand account of French national history. Despite these efforts, Louis-Philippe's government became more conservative in the 1840s, influenced by statesman François Guizot. The reluctance to address social inequalities and political corruption led to growing public discontent, ultimately contributing to his abdication during the February Revolution of 1848. In summary, Louis-Philippe's attempts to modernize France involved significant economic, political, and cultural reforms. He supported industrialization, expanded civil liberties, and maintained strong diplomatic relations. However, his inability to address the broader social and political issues of his time ultimately led to his downfall.